You know you have a healthy community when, like a hive mind without anything connecting them, they all start calling you daddy overnight. I thought I could release a quick video on the Sona voice update, because yesterday, Riot dumped a massive amount of lore onto Universe. Not only is there the finale of the Sisterhood of War series, but also we got a bio update for Taric, Zoe, and yes, Bard. So you know what we are going to have a look at this Sunday. Anyway, as I asked people what stories they would like to hear first, surprisingly a lot of people mentioned Sona, even though Sona does not have a new lore yet. Her story is still old, although the new voice lines suggest that there will be some new lore. So, before we start, there is a couple of things I need to mention. First of all, for some reason, I'm not blaming anyone, but we don't have the subtitles. Which is fine as long as we can understand what Sona is saying. But keep in mind that sometimes she is talking to someone, but because we don't have the subtitles, we don't know who she is talking to. But mostly we know just from the context. You'll know what I mean by this as we get into it. So now, let's begin.
Those artifacts can't really end the world, Ryze, right?
As you'll see, Sona doesn't have too many interesting interactions with other characters, but the few lines she has are really cool. For example, here she is talking to Ryze, and the artifacts that could end the world are of course the world runes. And the reason why Sona has an interaction with Ryze is because as Riot continues on their quest to make all of their cinematics canon, that means that Sona did meet Ryze at some point during her lore. Of course, as I said, her lore is still old and it will be updated, but I assume that the core parts will stay the same. Sona was an Ionian orphan who was adopted by a rich Demacian who really liked her instrument, which is called the Etwa. And so now, even though she is mute, and even though she is technically a mage, who is releasing magic when she's playing, and that's why she is charming people, she is still in Demacia. But there, nobody realized that Sona is actually a mage. Anyway, the point is, when Ryze met Sona in the Call of Power cinematic, now we know that Riot is trying to make it canon. And because there they attacked the Navori Brotherhood, I wonder if this means that Sona will get back to Ionia. But it sounds unlikely, as you'll see from the other lines.
Oh, is the Grand General a fan?
Once again, we don't have the subtitles, but the Grand General is Swain, so that's who she's talking to.
The world is cruel. Until that changes, I'll never stop playing.
And this is a reference to Sona's lore overall. With her magical music, she's almost able to control people. At least on the emotional level, she's able to calm people down. So what I assume is going to happen in Sona's new lore is that using her magical music, I think that Sona will try to calm all mages down, to stop the civil war. But that's just my guess.
And where has Ryze been? Hunting for more world-ending relics?
And here Sona has another line against Ryze. But this one is interesting because here Sona seems to not believe what Ryze is doing. I don't think she believes that the world runes can really end the world.
The tempo changes, and so do we.
As you'll see in the other lines that we get to, there seems to be an overall theme where Sona keeps talking about people changing. I think that might be part of her new lore as well. Maybe she is trying to change people. Just remember this because we will get back to this later.
We're both a long way from home, Xin Zhao. Rest easy.
Of course, just like Sona, Xin Zhao is Ionian. And let's be honest, Demacia is quite far away from their home.
Magic is like a song. It's woven into everything. Waiting.
And that was a confirmation that what Sona is doing is magical. She controls magic using her instrument.
There's so much pain in Xin Zhao's heart. Why?
Well, we know why. Xin Zhao was the personal guard of Jarvan IV. But when the civil war erupted, although Xin Zhao wanted to stay by the king's side to protect him, which was his job, the king sent him away to deliver a message to the Mage Seekers to stop fighting the mages and end the bloodshed. But before Xin Zhao was even able to deliver the message, bells started ringing in Demacia, because King Jarvan III died. So the reason why right now Xin Zhao is depressed is because his job was to protect the king no matter what happens. But the king ordered him to go away. And so, when the king died, Xin Zhao suddenly didn't know if he failed the kingdom because he did not protect the king, or if he did the right thing by following the king's orders. Perhaps if he went against his own king, Jarvan IV would still be alive.
This is no ordinary instrument. More like an old friend.
In the old lore, this instrument, again called Etva, was taken away from Sona when she was young. But then, when she was adopted by the rich Demacian, they got her the instrument back. That's why this could be an old friend.
Sorry, Garen, but I can't help if I'm locked up.
And this is the reason why I don't think that Sona will be returning to Ionia. Because since she's mentioning that she can't do anything if she's locked up, I assume that she's imprisoned in Demacia, along with the other mages. So you know what? Maybe I was wrong, and maybe people actually know that Sona is a mage. But more importantly, if in the new lore Sona ends up being imprisoned, that would tie her lore really well to all the other alternative universes. Because in case you don't know, in the Odyssey universe, where Sona has a lot more lore than in the canon universe, there Sona was imprisoned by the villains, because she is the chosen child who has the ability to control aura, which is the primordial power of the universe. That's why in that skin she has an aura orb in front of her. However, in the new Psyops universe, that is now on PBE, there Sona was also imprisoned. As far as we know, she was like a super weapon, and somehow she escaped. We don't really know the details yet. But with these two alternative universes, it would make sense for her to being locked up in the canon universe too. That's why I really like this line.
My music warms old souls and soothes hardened hearts. It is my greatest joy.
Once again, a reference to what Sona is doing with her magic.
Did he want 4 autographs? I don't understand.
Again, no subtitles, but I assume this is a line against Jhin. Which is interesting because not only is Jhin also an artist, but also because Sona was one of the people that were used for Jin's teaser. For context, now we know that Ryze just used random characters to tease Jhin. So technically, I don't believe that Jhin actually met Sona nor Garen. But who knows, maybe on their quest to make everything canon, Jhin will somehow end up in Demacia too.
Don't worry, Lux. One day, our kind will be free.
And yes, this is a reference to the fact that Lux is a mage as well, even though she is a Demacian.
Art bridges the gaps between people. Governments, not so much.
Of course, this is a reference to the fact that Demacia as a government is not really working out, and that's all because of the Mage Civil War.
A crown guard and a mage? Wouldn't want to be her.
Once again, she's talking about Lux.
It's good to see Taric hasn't changed. And bad. It's both.
See, and this is what I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Sona is often talking about people changing, which might be the overall theme with her. And here she has an interaction with Taric, because Taric used to be Demacian. He technically still is, but now he was turned into the Targonian aspect of the Protector. With the new lore dump on Universe, Taric got his bio updated as well. But there, just tiny details got tweaked. He was still a Demacian in the Demacian army, who was training besides Garen, and Taric's squad died probably because he left his post, which technically marked him as a deserter. And his punishment wasn't death, because Garen wanted to give him a chance to live, and so Taric was sentenced to die by the Crown of Stone, which is a ritual where Demacians send their deserters to Mount Targon, and they make them ascend the mountain. Most of them die there, but on the very rare occasion, such as the case with Taric, they succeed, they climb up, and magical things happen. So that's why Sona is talking about Taric changing. Because he was a Demacian, but as he climbed the mountain and he turned into a Targonian aspect, Sona mentioned that he did and didn't change. Because yes, he did change into the aspect, but he didn't change because his personality stayed the same.
Why won't Jarvan act? All it would take is a single decree.
And this is a follow-up to the story that happened after Jarvan IV died. Because the message that Xin Zhao was supposed to deliver to the Mage Seekers to end the civil war, it eventually ended up in the hands of Jarvan IV, the king's son, who now became the new ruler of Demacia. However, although we still don't know how Jarvan III died, we know it happened after the mages started a war, so that's why everyone assumes that Jarvan III died by the hands of a mage. And that's why, when Jarvan IV learned that King Jarvan III wanted to stop the civil war, Prince Jarvan burned the message so that no one would know. So now, Jarvan IV is thirsty for revenge. That's why he does not want to stop the civil war. Mages killed his father, and so he wants to avenge him by killing them all.
I don't think Ionia will be rushing to invite me back.
And this line is almost a confirmation that Sona will get new lore, because this is almost a cliffhanger. Now I really wanna know what Sona did in Ionia, and I wanna know how did she end up in Demacia. Perhaps she wasn't adopted by a rich Demacian.
Is that Aurelia? I haven't seen her since the restoration.
And here I am not entirely sure what the restoration could mean. The only thing that shattered in her story was the sigil of Irelia's family. The shattered family crest are the blades that Irelia is now using as a weapon. But those didn't become restored. So I wonder if this is a foreshadowing of something happening in Ionia in the future. Perhaps the restoration could be the Ionians finally pushing Noxians away.
Sylas, he hasn't changed, and my answer is still no.
Once again, Sona is talking about Sylas changing. Although I'm not sure why he would change. Maybe she's referring to the fact that after he got out of the prison, maybe that was supposed to change him. But regardless, Sona's answer is no, because she is a mage and Sylas would ask her to join his rebellion.
When fields lie calm and wind stands still, run home.
And this is honestly the coolest line Sona has. And you may be wondering why. It sounds like a totally random line. But it's not. This is the proof that yes, even Sona's voice lines were written by Jared Rosen, the guy who wrote all the demonic lore of Runeterra. Because this is where the voice line comes from.
When fields lie calm and wind stands still, run home.
When fields lie calm and wind stands still, run home, run home.
Yes, Sona is singing the folk song about Fiddlesticks.
Fiddlesticks? But the songs, they can't be real.
And this line makes it even better. Because even though Sona is singing about Fiddlesticks, she herself did not believe that Fiddlesticks was real. And that's why this is so cool. Even though Sona seems to be a pretty powerful mage in Demacia, even she is oblivious to the greater evil in the world. And it just gives us such a good setup for Runeterra.
Am I supposed to know this person? Is he a fan?
And here I am really sad that we don't have the subtitles. Because I would really love to know who she's talking about. Lux had a similar line against Ezreal. Because even though Ezreal talks about Lux a lot, Lux doesn't seem to remember him. So from her point of view, she has a voice line where she's wondering if she is supposed to know Ezreal. And I think something similar is happening here. So that's why I'm wondering who we think that Sona was supposed to meet. But in the lore, she didn't. I think Jhin would be the obvious answer, because they are both artists, and in Jin's teaser, he fantasized about killing Sona. And yet, in the lore, Sona and Jhin never met. So perhaps that's who she is talking about. But it is really sad that right now, we simply don't know who that is. And that is it for Sona's voice lines. Honestly, Fiddlesticks made this entire thing so much cooler. But yeah, there are a lot of references to the fact that Sona will most likely get a new lore soon. And it might even be connected to what is happening in Ionia right now. With that said, Riot is really releasing a lot of new lore quite quickly, so I'll need to get back onto that. So now excuse me if I don't prolong this outro anymore, because I need to get to my soulmate, Bard. I'll see you on Sunday.
When fields lie calm and wind stands still, run home, run